Look, we need to talk about what just went down with Rex Ryan and Shedeur Sanders, because this thing has gotten completely out of control. Rex Ryan just went on ESPN and basically committed career suicide on live television, and honestly, I'm not sure he even realizes the magnitude of what he's done. This isn't your typical hot take controversy that blows over in 48 hours. This is different. This has legs, and those legs are running straight toward the edge of a cliff. So Rex gets on air, right? And he starts going off about Shedeur Sanders, the rookie quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. But here's where it gets weird. He's not talking about Shedeur's performance on the field. He's not breaking down film or analyzing his throwing mechanics or discussing his decision-making under pressure. No, Rex is literally complaining about where this kid sits during team meetings. I'm not making this up. A former NFL head coach, someone who's supposed to provide expert analysis, dedicated airtime on the biggest sports network in the world to critique a third-string quarterback's seating arrangement. He painted this whole picture of Shedeur sitting in the back of the room with his arms crossed, acting like he's too cool for school, like he doesn't care about learning the playbook or putting in the work. Rex said it was an embarrassment. He called Shedeur disrespectful. He made it sound like this kid was showing up to meetings in sunglasses and headphones, completely checked out and entitled. And the way Rex told it, you'd think Shedeur was this massive locker room cancer who thought the NFL owed him something just because of his last name. It was a character assassination, pure and simple, except there's one tiny problem with Rex's entire story. It's complete nonsense, like objectively, provably false. And here's the kicker that makes this whole thing fall apart. Rex Ryan hasn't been inside the Cleveland Browns facility since 2012. Read that again. 2012. That's over a decade ago. He has no current sources, no insider information, no secret pipeline to the Browns locker room. He's literally just making stuff up. Think about that for a second. This man went on national television and presented complete fiction as fact. He had no evidence, no sources, no receipts whatsoever. He just decided that this narrative fit the story he wanted to tell, so he told it. And what's the story he wanted to tell? The classic tale of the cocky young star who needs to be humbled, the entitled kid who thinks he's better than everyone else and needs to be put in his place. It's lazy, it's predictable, and worst of all, it's completely disconnected from reality, because here's what Shedeur Sanders has actually been doing since he got to Cleveland. He's been doing exactly what every smart, patient rookie quarterback does. He's been learning. He's been studying the system. He's been watching the veterans ahead of him, absorbing everything he can, and waiting for his opportunity. This is literally the textbook way to develop a franchise quarterback in the modern NFL. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a year and used that time to learn Andy Reid's system. Aaron Rodgers famously waited 3 seasons behind Brett Favre in Green Bay before getting his shot. Jordan Love just spent years on the bench behind Rodgers doing the same thing. This is the blueprint. This is what successful organizations do with young quarterbacks. They let them develop without throwing them into the fire on day one. They give them time to adjust to the speed of the game, to learn the playbook inside and out, to understand what it takes to be a professional. But somehow, when Shedeur Sanders follows this exact same path, it becomes a problem. Suddenly, patience is laziness. Learning from the sideline is disrespect. Waiting your turn is entitlement. The hypocrisy is absolutely staggering. You've got starting quarterbacks all across this league right now who are actively losing games for their teams. Guys who are throwing back-breaking interceptions, fumbling away possessions, making terrible decisions under pressure, and collecting massive paychecks while their teams spiral. And what's the national conversation about? A third-string rookie's posture in meetings. A kid who hasn't even started a game yet. Think about how absurd that is. The media obsession with Shedeur Sanders has reached levels that don't make any logical sense unless you understand what's really going on here. This isn't about football. It never has been. This is about something much deeper, and the reaction to Rex's comments proved it. The moment that clip hit the internet, it was absolute chaos. The backlash wasn't some slow burn where people gradually started disagreeing. It was immediate and it was brutal. Fans, analysts, former players, media members, everyone descended on Rex Ryan like a pack of wolves. Social media exploded with people tearing his argument to shreds. The comments were ruthless. People were calling him a clown, a has-been, a desperate attention seeker. They were demanding proof, asking for sources, wanting to know how he could possibly know what's happening in Browns meetings when he hasn't been there in over a decade, and of course Rex had nothing. He couldn't provide a single shred of evidence to back up his claims because there was no evidence. It was all just gossip dressed up as analysis. But here's what made the backlash even more interesting. Cleveland Browns fans, who are notoriously tough and critical of their own players, came out in force to defend Shedeur. This is a fan base that will turn on you in a heartbeat if they think you're not giving everything to the team. They've been through decades of disappointment and false hope. They don't suffer fools gladly. Yet here they were, flooding Twitter and sports forums, standing up for their rookie quarterback who hasn't even played yet. That tells you everything you need to know about how Shedeur has conducted himself in Cleveland. He's won over one of the toughest fan bases in sports without throwing a single regular season pass. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when you handle yourself with professionalism and class, when you work hard, when you earn respect the right way. Then things got really interesting. Tony Rizzo, who's a legitimate Cleveland sports insider with actual connections to the organization, jumped into the conversation, and he said something that changed the entire narrative. He basically said, look, Rex didn't just pull this out of thin air. Somebody fed him this information, and suddenly, this wasn't just a story about a bad take anymore. It became a mystery. Who was the source? Who inside the NFL ecosystem had a motive to sabotage a rookie quarterback? Who was cowardly enough to leak negative stories to the media instead of addressing issues directly? The internet went full detective mode. People started speculating about disgruntled coaches, competing quarterbacks' agents, front office politics. The conspiracy theories were flying everywhere. And honestly, that's probably the worst part of this whole thing for Rex Ryan. He went from being the guy making the accusation to being exposed as someone's puppet. He wasn't some fearless truth teller. He was a mouthpiece for someone else's agenda. He was being used, and he either didn't know it or didn't care. Either way, it makes him look absolutely terrible. He's out here acting like he's got this incredible inside information, hinting at his sources and his connections, when in reality, he's just repeating gossip that someone fed him because they had their own reasons for wanting to damage Shedeur's reputation. It's pathetic, honestly. And here's the thing that makes this entire situation even more infuriating. The scrutiny that Shedeur Sanders faces is completely disproportionate to what any other rookie quarterback deals with. Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, all these other rookie quarterbacks around the league are doing the exact same things Shedeur's doing. They're sitting in meetings, learning playbooks, posting on social media, living their lives, and nobody's writing think pieces about them. Nobody's questioning their work ethic or their attitude or their seating preferences. The media circus is reserved exclusively for Shedeur Sanders. Every single week there's some new manufactured controversy. One week he's not focused enough, the next week he's too flashy, then he doesn't respect the game properly. The criticisms are always vague, always conveniently timed, and never backed up with actual evidence. It's not hard to figure out why. Shedeur carries a name that comes with enormous expectations, and apparently, for some people, enormous resentment. He's Deion Sanders' son, primetime kid. That legacy is both a blessing and a curse. His father revolutionized the cornerback position, redefined what it meant to have confidence and swagger in the NFL, and built a brand that transcended football. Shedeur walked into this league with a spotlight already on him, with a target already painted on his back, and for a certain segment of the old guard, that's unforgivable. They want rookies to be seen and not heard. They want them to be humble to the point of invisibility. They want them to apologize for existing until they've proven themselves according to whatever arbitrary standards these critics have decided matter. Shedeur Sanders is not that guy. He's confident, he's authentic, he's comfortable in his own skin. He doesn't pretend to be something he's not just to make other people comfortable. And that authenticity, that refusal to play the game according to their outdated rules, it drives the establishment crazy. The double standard is so obvious it's almost funny. You can be a mediocre quarterback, and as long as you say the right things in press conferences and keep your head down, you'll get praised for your maturity and professionalism. But if you're talented and confident and happen to have a famous father, suddenly every aspect of your character is under a microscope. It's exhausting to watch, and I can't imagine what it's like to live through. But here's what people like Rex Ryan don't understand. Shedeur Sanders has been preparing for this his entire life. He grew up in the spotlight. He's played under intense scrutiny at every level. High school, Jackson State, Colorado, every stop along the way, he's faced doubters and critics and people trying to tear him down. And every single time, he's responded by playing well and conducting himself with class. Pressure doesn't break this kid. It never has. All this noise, all these manufactured controversies, all the baseless accusations, they don't rattle him. If anything, they fuel him. He knows what his father went through. He knows how the media works. He's been watching and learning from one of the most scrutinized athletes in history since he was old enough to understand what football was. So while Rex Ryan was melting down on television and the internet was tearing him apart, what was Shedeur doing? Working, studying film, getting better, preparing for his moment, because he knows something that his critics don't seem to understand. All this talk is just noise. When he finally gets his chance to play, when he steps on that field as the starting quarterback, none of this other stuff will matter. The only thing that will matter is performance. Can he make the throws? Can he read defenses? Can he lead a team? That's what he's focused on, and that's what makes all these attacks so pointless. The fallout for ESPN has been significant. This wasn't just an analyst having a bad day. This was a complete breakdown of journalistic standards on their network. You can imagine the panic in Bristol when this story blew up. Phone calls from angry fans, sponsors asking questions, other media outlets writing about ESPN's credibility problem. They had to do something. And according to multiple reports and the very conspicuous absence of Rex Ryan from their programming recently, they did. He got benched. They're calling it a suspension without officially calling it a suspension, but the message is clear. He crossed a line and there were consequences. For Rex, this is catastrophic. His credibility was already questionable after his coaching career flamed out, but this might be the final nail in the coffin. He'll forever be known as the guy who got suspended for lying about a rookie's seating chart. Every time he tries to provide analysis going forward, people will remember this. Every time he claims to have inside sources, viewers will roll their eyes. He gambled his reputation on a cheap shot at a young player who's done nothing to deserve it, and he lost everything. That clip of him ranting about Shedeur will be on the internet forever, and when Shedeur inevitably succeeds in this league, it's going to look worse and worse as time goes on. This whole situation has exposed something ugly about sports media. There's this pervasive problem where analysts feel like they can say whatever they want about players without any accountability. They can make wild accusations, question people's character, spread rumors and gossip, all under the guise of expert analysis. And for too long, networks have let it happen because controversy drives clicks and ratings. But audiences are getting smarter. They're demanding better. They're calling out the nonsense when they see it. What happened to Rex Ryan is a warning shot to every other talking head who thinks they can take baseless shots at players. The backlash is real, it's swift, and it can end careers. The beautiful irony in all of this is that every attack on Shedeur Sanders, every manufactured controversy, every attempt to tear him down before he even gets started, it's all just building the legend. When he finally does get his shot and shows what he can do, the vindication is going to be that much sweeter. He doesn't need to defend himself on social media or get into Twitter battles with critics. His game will speak for itself. Every perfect throw, every game-winning drive, every moment of poise and leadership will be a direct refutation of everything that's been said about him. The truth will be undeniable because it'll be right there on the field for everyone to see. This story represents something bigger than just one player and one analyst. It's about a changing of the guard in the NFL. The old rules about how players are supposed to act, what they're supposed to say, how they're supposed to present themselves, those rules are dying. This new generation of players is more authentic, more confident, more willing to be themselves, and the establishment is struggling to deal with it. They're uncomfortable with players who don't fit their narrow definition of what a quarterback should look and sound like. Especially when we're talking about black quarterbacks, there's still this deeply ingrained expectation that they need to be extra humble, extra deferential, extra careful about how they carry themselves. It's a double standard that's been around forever, and it needs to end. Shedeur Sanders represents that new era. He's talented, he's confident, he's authentic, and he's not apologizing for any of it. He's going to succeed on his own terms, and there's nothing the critics can do to stop it. All their words, all their hot takes, all their manufactured outrage. None of it matters when the ball is snapped and it's time to play football. That's where reputations are built and narratives are destroyed. Rex Ryan tried to get ahead of the story, tried to plant seeds of doubt about Shedeur's character and work ethic before he even had a chance to prove himself, but it backfired spectacularly. Instead of damaging Shedeur, he damaged himself. Instead of controlling the narrative, he became the story. Instead of being remembered as an analyst who saw something others missed, he'll be remembered as a cautionary tale about what happens when you let personal bias and desperate attention-seeking override basic journalistic integrity. The lesson here for everyone watching is simple. Question the narratives you're being fed. Demand evidence when analysts make claims. Don't let media personalities tear down players based on anonymous sources and vague accusations. And most importantly, remember that actions speak louder than words. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need to convince anyone of anything through press conferences or social media posts. When his time comes, when he gets his opportunity to start, his performance will tell the real story. Everything else is just noise, and noise fades. Excellence echoes forever, so keep your eyes on Cleveland, because when that moment finally arrives, it's going to be special. Not just because we'll get to see a talented young quarterback finally showcase his abilities, but because it'll be proof that no matter how hard people try to tear you down before you've even had your chance, truth and talent always find a way to rise above the garbage.